Hi everyone, welcome back. This is the restoration of a 1958 Flying 15, hull number 274, and in this episode we're going to talk about the winch post and installing the starboard seat, which is really amazing. But before that, please forgive me, internet. It has been 10 months since I posted my last video, which means we should start with a really brief recap of what happened in the last episode. We replaced the station floor, fixed and re-glued all the transom floors, replaced a deck stringer, epoxied all the floors to protect them, dismantled this winch post thing, took all the metal and clay stuff out of it, dry fit the new seats, found a new position for the winch post, and added a first coat of bilge paint.
Around 25 times the volume of water that flows in the Mississippi is flowing through the air, and this is the 10th so-called atmospheric river to hit California this winter. Low pressure from the north meets moist air near Hawaii. They call it a pineapple express. Sounds fun? It's not. Essentially, a fire hose aimed at this state, usually famed for its sunshine.
Off and on rain, very cold, and also some wintry weather. But we do start to see the winds picking up here at 10 o'clock along the coastline. These areas in purple, those are 50+ mile-per-hour winds, and we could see that across the Bay Area, especially in the hills for today. And it's going to continue to be gusty even into this evening, as some of those wind gusts for Half Moon Bay and San Francisco could top 60 miles per hour.
We got wrecked. The whole boat structure collapsed in one really big storm. And I've been through this quite a few times in rebuilding this boat shelter, and so I had had enough and realized that I really needed to get very serious about buying the right shelter that's more permanent. I also moved the woodworking table over to this area, so I have easy access to tools, and this is what I built. It works great. It's very strong and keeps the rain out and the wind and the dirt. So big upgrade to the boat building area, and I'm very pleased and happy with it. So in the last video, I added these under-seat supports, and you'll notice that they've been moved. Thank you to one of the video commenters that correctly pointed out that I positioned them wrong and that they would have probably eventually gone through the hull over time. So I did install them over the ribs, which is great, and cleaned up all of the rib epoxy. There was extra fiberglass. It was a little bit of a mess, and did both sides, and what I'm doing now is preparing to paint. Now, I had a dream for this boat, which really started in a full restoration and getting her back into the water, but also adding some really cool design elements to the boat. And this winch post thing, I'm still not sure what it's called. If you know what this thing is called, please leave a comment. But obviously, after I took all of the metal out, it created a lot of metal rot in the wood. And so these holes need to be filled. So I ended up filling the holes and cleaned them all up. I used dowels. Dowels are really, really strong. If you don't know, if you think that they're just a softwood, they're not. I think they're probably white oak. I'm not sure what dowels are made out of. They're very strong. So at this point, the holes have been filled. It's very, very, very strong, but it looks terrible. It looks terrible. I don't want to leave it like that. So I came up with a plan. If this was your restoration, what would you do? I decided to add some brass inlay, which I'm really excited about. It's going to look so beautiful. And I am honoring the beautiful state of California, where I live, with our state flower, the California poppy. So I sketched it out. I made sure that the inlay, which is a very thin piece of metal, is just going to be inserted directly into the top to further protect this area.
We've been on the run, driving in the sun, looking out for #1. California, here we come, right back where we started from. Well, hustlers, grab your shadow weighs a ton, driving down the 101. California, here we come, right back where we started from. California. Nothing's gonna stop me now. California, here we come, right back where we started from. A pedal to the floor, thinking of the war, gotta get us to the show. California, here we come, right back where we started from. California.
That came out pretty good, didn't it? Let's talk about the winch post. So the winch post is going to be epoxied into the keelson. And so what I started by doing is making a square keyhole, essentially. And I noticed this big hole at the bottom of the winch post and realized that maybe a bolt originally went through it because a previous boat owner must have sealed up the entry or exit part of wherever that hole led to. So I need to fix that and get it ready to install into the keelson. And also, I'm gonna put the winch post and fix it permanently into this crossbar. I'm gonna make a template. I'm going to make essentially a kind of a sleeve that should be attached to the winch post. You can see it right there. And then those two coupling will go into this hole. I think at this point you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. So let me just show you. Here's the issue. Originally this boat came with the winch post affixed into that crossbar with two like wedge pieces of wood. Keep the winch post centered somehow. You'll see from here from episode 2, you can see those two small holes. And here I'm deleting those holes essentially to make sure that when I do put this new ring in, that it's going to be super tight and there are 0 gaps between this crossbar and the winch post. So what I need to do is make sure that this is a really tight fit. It took a long time to get this to fit properly. I'm actually going to put 2 rings, but this one goes on the top and the bottom one pushes up against the bottom of that crossbar. You know, one of the most difficult things about this winch post is making sure that whatever is being done to it is strong enough to be able to handle the pressure put against it, right? Not only by its natural use as a winch itself, but make sure that it doesn't have any lateral movement. So that's why I've cut a notch into the keelson, put the winch post down into it, and here's the finished ring. It's not 100% finished sanded, but you can see essentially how this works. I needed to make sure that it didn't twist left to right or go up and down or put pressure against that crossbar. So if I pulled on it, or was hiking over and had to grab onto something, even if I grabbed it, the fact that the key is into the bottom of the keelson makes sure that it's a really, really strong connection, which is great. And here it is. I did epoxy into the keelson. There's a big bead there of epoxy. It is strong. I also epoxied it to the bottom of the seat supports. I also added 2 through bolts on both sides of this winch crossbar, and look how strong it is. It's so strong, and it's beautiful. I think it is so beautiful. I just hope to God I don't break it. And can I tell you something? Don't tell anyone I said this, but I realized after the whole thing was epoxy together, I realized I didn't know if I put it in the right way. Is the tall winch supposed to go in the front, or is the shorty winch supposed to go in the front? I didn't know. But then I looked back at old photos and I put it in the right way. Thank God. You remember that I had to bend my own plywood seats? I ended up starting out with 2 ply and then added a 3rd right before I installed these seats. I realized that the 2 ply was not nearly strong enough. So here I'm dry fitting the seat. You can see the crossbar there. It actually became detached when I was adding the 3rd layer of the seat, so I have to go back and reinstall that bottom mid-seat support bar. But what I really needed to do also was to come up with a clamp plan, is what it's called, a clamp plan. So I took many efforts and passes at trying to figure out where to place all of the winches so that there was good adhesion all the way around. And this is how many clamps it took. And one of the big goals was to make sure that it was sealed, especially around the outside, because once I trim this piece off, what I really need to do is there's going to be a, if you remember from one of the early videos, there's like a rub rail, right? There's a rub rail that runs all the way along from the back of the boat to the front of the boat. But in front of the seat here, this is the original starboard seat. And there is this kind of a decorative trim. It's almost like a rub rail, but for the bottom of the bottom of the seats. It's hard to really show you how it looks, but yeah. I mean, just looking at these pieces now, I mean, they really needed to be replaced. It looks so bad. Yeah, I'm really proud of the way that it turned out. I think the starboard seat is really strong. It's really beautiful. And that's it, guys. That's essentially the end of the video. You waited 10 months, but this is what I've been up to all this time. I'm really looking forward to getting back into finishing all of the boat pieces, and maybe, eventually, if I'm very lucky, I'll be able to put her in the water soon. Well, that's it, guys. That's the end of the video. And I'm so looking forward to taking the next steps, which seems that we're really, really close to actually laying the decking. I think we're really close, so that's a huge accomplishment, and I'm so excited. And I hope you all take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time. Bye. You'll notice something. We have a new inspector. You're familiar with Inspector Ginger here. This is Inspector Kitty. She will not sit still for more than 2 minutes. But here she is. If you're wondering what that dog is, she needed a home, so I just got her from the shelter. She's not a great inspector, but she'll do for now.